Today we're going to look a little bit about our budget and some of the things that go into our budget. So the first thing we want to talk about is income. Remember, income is added to your budget. So some of the sources of income would be like your payroll check, your Social Security check, and sometimes you would have child support checks. So those are just some sources of income. There are others. Then we have expenses. Remember, expenses are subtracted from your budget. So let's list some of our expenses. Some of our expenses would be food, electricity, we might have transportation costs. Now that could be a car payment, it could be bus fare, taxi fare, any of those things that would get you from home to work or to school, those types of things. Those are transportation expenses. And then lodging expenses or home expenses, that could be a house payment or rent. Those are expenses. And in our budget, we would subtract these expenses from our income. Okay? So one of the things I want you to remember is when you are determining your budget and the percent of your income that will go for each of these expenses, you want to make sure that you change that percentage value into a decimal. Okay? So let's just practice that for just a minute. If I wanted to see what 15% would look like as a decimal, remember I moved the decimal 2 places to the left, and that would look like 0.15. Okay, so that's our expenses. All right, so let's look a little bit further, and we're going to maybe move this slide up a little bit. It's not going to let me move it. So let's look at an example of a scenario where we have an expense and we are wanting to see what our income would be. So this one says, if Alton makes $800 a month in income and spends 15% on groceries, that should be on, for the month, how much of his income will he spend on groceries? Okay, so this is important. That's how much his income is. And this is important. We want to know how much is 15% of that income, because he's planning on spending that on groceries. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to change the 15% to a decimal. Okay, so if we have 15%, just a second ago we said we would move that decimal places 2 places to the left, and that would give us 0.15 as a decimal. The second thing we would do is to multiply the decimal by our income. So if we have $800 in income and we multiply that by 0.15, we will get 120. So Alton can spend $120 on groceries out of his monthly income. Okay? Now, I'm giving you a question to answer. I want to see if you can answer it. It says if he wants to spend 40% on rent, how much would his rent be? Okay, so look at the way we solved this problem. We said income times the percent, changed to a decimal, and that gave us the amount of money he would spend on groceries. Now I want you to try this question that I've asked you here and find out how much will he spend on rent if he wants to spend 40% of his income. I'd like for you to email me your response and let's see what you come up with, okay? So if you could video it, I'd be glad to hear what you had to say about this particular problem.